Call the meeting of Monday, January 27th, 2020, City of Waterville Council meeting to order. I'd ask Mr. John Rosick to lead us in the prayer.
Thank you, Mayor. Loving God, as we come together tonight for the City of Waterville, we pause to ask you to be with us and guide our way. May your spirit of peace surround all we say and do this evening. We ask for your strength to do what is best for the good of Waterville. Lord God, as servants of your people, we pray that you grant us a share of your wisdom. Amen.
Rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Bruno? Mrs. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mayor Pedro?
Here.
Mr. Rosick?
Here.
Mr. Borowski?
Here.
Duncan?
Here.
I did receive a message from Mr. Anthony Bruno, who is unable to be here tonight, so I move that we excuse him. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. Approval of the minutes from the council meeting of January 13th, 2020. Need a motion to accept.
Move to approve. Second.
Second, Mary Duncan. Any discussion?
Looks good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. I have a proclamation to read. Whereas 61 urban and rural transit agencies will observe the third annual Ohio Loves Transit Day on February 14th, 2020. And whereas on the day that transit agencies sponsor events and activities to encourage ridership and to educate the public, elected officials, community leaders, and the media about the many contributions public transportation makes to Ohio's economy and to the quality of life of communities across the state. And whereas the Toledo Area Regional Authority, TARTA, enhances the quality of life in Waterville by providing reliable, affordable, and convenient mobility service in the public wants, needs, and deserves. And whereas 500,000 Ohioans depend on public transit every day to get to work, school, medical appointments, shopping centers, parks, libraries, entertainment venues, and countless other destinations. And whereas Ohio's public agencies provide more than 117 million rides per year, including more than 14 million rides for seniors and with persons with disabilities. And whereas Public Transportation Ohio is a $900 million industry that directly employs 7,480 people and creates tens of thousands of private sector jobs. And whereas nearly $1 billion invested in the public transit generates $3.6 billion in economic development activity in Ohio each year, and whereas public transit's contribution to our community are worthy of recognition, now therefore, I, Timothy G. Pedro, as mayor of the city of Waterville, do hereby proclaim February 14th, 2020 as Ohio Loves Transit Day in the city of Waterville, and urge all residents to join in the recognition of events taking place on February 14th to celebrate the importance of public transit in the city of Waterville and Lucas County. A witness, therefore, I hereon do set my hand and cause to be affixed on the Great Seal of the City of Waterville, Ohio, this 27th day of January 2020.
Excellent. Let's go out and ride Tarda.
Yeah. Which is, I'll bring it up later, but incidentally, I'm going to be meeting with the new TARTA director in a couple of weeks. Been trying to set a meeting up for a couple of weeks, and we finally arrived on a date. Next, we have citizens' comments. Anyone make some comments from the citizens? All right. Hearing none, we'll go with staff reports. We have Mr. Our Administrator, John.
Thank you, Mayor. did receive some letters from Teresa Gavrone, who's our state senator, and she sent those today. Those came in the mail, and those were to council members Borowski, Mrs. Bruno, and Rod Fry congratulating you on your recent election to council. So that came today. In my report, I did send out an email to council members about the ribbon cutting ceremony and included kind of a tentative agenda. It is scheduled for this Friday, January 31st, 2020. The ceremony starts at 11. There's a bridge open house, which opens at 10. People can walk around and look at the bridge and see what's going on there. And then we'd have the ceremony, and the bridge would open to traffic at approximately noon. Might take a little longer since they have to maybe tie things in there. I did want to mention I did get an email regarding our leash law that was recently passed. That takes effect February 14th, and the city is going to be purchasing some signs to put up in the park that remind people that they have to have their dogs on a leash. That was suggested by Ron from the Park and Rec Board, so I wanted to mention that. I'm also taking a look at getting some bids together, bid requirements, bid specifications, working with the Lucas County sanitary engineer to put our trash collection out to bid. We would put a bid out to Republic and anybody else who would be interested in bidding on it. I wanted to mention that I think we're probably going to have some kind of a bid specification for toters. I think these wheeled carts, most communities are using those now, and I think if we put out a bid, and we can do this to continue as we're doing, our price is going to be higher because everyone is getting away from picking up bags and throwing them in the garbage trucks, injuries, workers' comp things, stuff like that. So we're going to take a look at those toters, and they would be for trash and recycling. And I don't know if anyone has any comments about those, because I know that would be different than we currently do now. Our contract expires May 31st, 2020. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that the city did receive what's called a final draft for the 911 Council of Governments that we've discussed last year. And one of the interesting parts of the agreement is that any member that joins the Council of Governments can withdraw, but you're going to still be assessed every year for the fee. So in effect, you really can't withdraw. And I know that was a question that council members, when the Lucas County representatives were here, that you mentioned, can we withdraw with this if we're not happy? And the Tarda example where you join but you can't ever leave. That's right. That's kind of what this is. So I'll be bringing the final draft at the next council meeting. But in effect, if we join it, we can't get out of it. So that's interesting.
We can't not join it, though.
Well, that's a good question. I don't think we can't not join it. I think we're stuck with that. I guess the good news is our full assessment wouldn't be made until 2024. They're giving communities a discount or a break until
ramp up.
Yeah, ramp up the cost. But we can't leave when we join, so we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
So.
And that full assessment, it was like 94,000?
Yes. So other than that concludes my report. If you have any questions.
John, on the toters, do the residents pay for their own toter, or is the service provider?
This is my question. The city could pay for those, or the resident could pay for those, and we could put the bid out for both. I think that's probably a good idea. And when I say the citizen, they would be paying for it in their bill. Obviously, they're not going to be paying for it when they, if we we switch to another provider, but, in general, I think the monthly rate would be less if we went with some type of toter, as opposed to, you know, having 3 people come out here, one guy's driving the truck, 2 guys get out and throw the trash bags in the back, and I really don't know, other than any community that still picks up their own trash, that they don't have toters now, so we're kind of the last ones in that respect.
With the toter, we're not gonna be able to do unlimited pickup?
Well, we would have unlimited pickup. We would put 2.
It's a separate contract.
Yeah, we would put out, say, we want 2 unlimited days per year, what we do now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the toters, those are the ones where they automatically come and pick them up with the machine, the
Right.
arm and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'd have one for your garbage and one for recycling,
Correct.
like the city of Toledo?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, one of the Republic problems seems to be is, you know, at least they say this, is that, well, we have to send out our old trucks and they break down all the time, the ones that aren't automated, which there might be something to that.
Sure.
So if we did go to the toters, we would have an automated, newer trucks to come and pick up the trash, so.
They're also covered.
Yeah.
And part of our problem with Republic is on a windy day, we have garbage everywhere. And
Especially.
one of the advantages of having those toters is they have a lid and it keeps everything inside.
Anybody else?
Real quick,
Barb?
regarding this and recycling specifically, could we have like Juliana Sample from Keep Toledo Lucas County Beautiful, or Chris Pisa, I think he's with the recycling program there for Lucas County, come and talk specifically about the recycling? Because a former recycler, and I know Mary Duncan has brought this up before, the dirty secret of recycling is only 75%. Well, I mean, probably 25% or less actually makes it into recycling. 75% of what you put in your recycling bin gets put in the dump, just through the process, because everything's contaminated in the stream. So, I think we should discuss at this point about the advantages of going forward with the curbside recycling. Maybe we eliminate it at this time and promote the recycling out at Kroger. And that's more clean, right? It's real clean when you put them in those receptacles. So I would like to see either one of those come and talk to us specifically about recycling and the actual benefits of it, and if they're ever gonna do a MRF, what does that mean? And, yeah, that's my comments on that.
Well, as long as the tariffs are on with China, there'll be no recycling because that's where it all went and they're taking nothing. So that's pretty much killed that.
Right, but yet we keep paying for it.
Yeah. And on the garbage side, most of the smaller entities now in Lucas County let Lucas County be the contracting party and put out the bids on behalf of the pickup. You're a third-party beneficiary and they use their force and the breadth of the contract to reduce the rates, and most of them are all totes, all automatic, both recycling and garbage, but it is a very large savings for residents.
You know, and if we do go through Lucas County, then I think they're gonna insist that we recycle. I don't think we'll have a choice. I think that's something that, there's a Lucas County, solid waste plan that, you know, with the federal government, they have to say or provide information saying that, you know, we're recycling X amount of our refuse per year. And so I think if we chose the option of going through the county,
Federal
which
dollars.
the law director mentioned is, it's a lot cleaner and we don't have to advertise and do our own bid specs, and then we also have the weight of the county to get a better price. I don't think we have a choice on that. I think they would insist that we recycle, pretty much.
Okay, can we at least still get some kind of report from
Yeah,
Lucas County
sure.
regarding the recycling?
Good point.
Yeah, I think you
For our
probably
next
get
meeting?
Jim Shaw to come out, or one of the representatives that does that particular part of the contract and lay it all out for 'em.
Because there's truth behind this, I mean, and I don't think we're being told the truth, quite frankly, about
You-
recycling.
So we get bids plus Lucas County?
Well,
Quoting, or how does
I
that
think
work?
we can get someone from Lucas County to do a presentation on the recycling, and, but that person is going to be working for the sanitary engineer who is in charge of the bids. So we'll send him our specifications, and then he'll put it out to bid for us.
So we would still get bids independently with
If we need to.
providers or not? We don't need to.
We don't need to, no. No, and you know, he'll send them out to everybody who's interested, and, you know, they'll send a bid in if they're interested in our business, I guess you could say.
Last thing I have, just a suggestion, and I have no example, but from a revenue stream, would it be council's interest to explore some type of advertisement on those totes? Some company might want to put their ad on there or their logo, obviously for a fee, unless council thinks that would be cluttering the refuge. Maybe it's not a good idea, but I'd like to at least keep it on the table for a short time and maybe come back with some specific examples. I think we all know that the industry's changing, and maybe there is a company out there that would want to have their name on the tote.
I know Waste Management puts theirs on every one of their totes.
Yeah.
And if they're gonna put it out to bid, I bet you they get to do it versus us, but
So do they get a benefit? They get the benefit of the visual, but do they get
the visual is all.
Yeah.
But Perrysburg has them, Holland's now through Lucas County, same
Yeah.
program.
All right, just a thought. Okay, moving along, we have our law director. How timely, what a nice transition.
Nice to be back, nice to see you all, and no report tonight.
And our finance director?
Thank you. How is everyone?
Good, good.
I have December's report, and we're getting pretty close to wrapping December and the year end up. And I want to first just point out, when we look at page 2, is the, excuse me, I always kind of mess up on these pages. I guess I'd really prefer, apologize again. Page 6, which identifies your fund balances. Okay, and you can see your gains and losses from 18. So when you look down at the bottom right, our ending fund balance is $6,745,000. So we're a ballpark of $9 million over what we were in 18. Okay, so investments have stayed the same since last month. We've got a ballpark of 1.7 million, and this is on page 7 in CDs, and another in total 3.8 million, which would include Star Ohio and Fifth Third sweep account. And then our income taxes, I included December again. We had that last month, or last meeting. If we go to page 18, that's the December, and there is about in the middle of the page, the header of that page is, there's a big B on the right side. We're about 3.5% over and above what we were last year. And so ballpark of 121,000, which I think we already discussed. And then I included the January report as well. And in January, we received 300,000, which is about 54,000 greater than what we received January of 18. So it's pretty substantial amount greater. We expect that's going to tone down a bit. So, any questions?
Numbers look good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next up, our treasurer. Okay, communication from the council, and we'll start with Barbara Bruno, please.
Okay, yeah, well, in line with what Mr. Gokenauer was talking about regarding the leash law, yep, he did contact all of Parks and Recreation Committee members as well. He had said said he had seen some dogs running at large at Bear Park shortly after the law was passed here, but like you said, it doesn't go into effect until February 14th. So yeah, I would also recommend the mayor and Channel 5, if we can kind of make sure that it's public there as well, and on our marquees initially, so the residents are informed about that, especially with spring coming, right? Which, being the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I guess this is segue to our need for a dog park in our area. And the committee has looked at it previously, and it's kind of died for lack of, just feeling like it's gonna be pretty costly to put one in, but, I know another council member here is interested in pursuing this. And he has, some good connections with, members of the, dog park in
Glass City.
Toledo. And so we're kinda gonna, see what they've done and how they did it, and we really need someone outside of the city to pick up the ball and run with it, and we'll work with them hand in glove to bring this about. So when the committee gets together next, we'll get more serious about that and bring some recommendations to council, because some dogs like to run at large, right? And they need that. So I think as a community, we're probably beholden to provide something of that.
Potentially, Glass City said they're interested in doing a partnership, and we would piggyback on what they did and help us raise the money to build it, so.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosick, or Mr. Fry?
No report this evening.
Me neither, Your Honor.
Todd Borowski here. You forgot.
No report.
No report.
You gonna talk about TMACOG?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the mayor and I attended TMACOG today. It was, a good meeting. I don't know, Todd was not real familiar with TMACOG. I don't know if everyone else is, but it's a governmental organization where we get together with the mayors of the other cities, the township representatives, county representatives. It's quite a diverse group. A lot of universities send representatives, the metro parks, and they all talk about their issues. Tim and I attended the smaller committee on cities, and we talked about our need for firemen. We talked about the opening of the bridge, which I'm sure Tim will talk about. And it's interesting, the fight between, or the dynamic, I'll say, between the townships and the cities. Even on the 911 issue, where the townships are against it, the cities are for it, well, the townships don't pay for that service right now, so everybody will be paying their fair share. And it's just very interesting when they get up in the general meeting to talk about what they discussed, and it's kind of the opposite of what we discussed, so I found it kind of fascinating. I don't know whether you've noticed, but the information about, which I'll let Tim talk about more, the bridge opening is up on the red lit up sign, and also up at the fire station on both sides of the sign, so that the citizens are aware that there is something happening on Friday with the opening of the bridge. That's it. The end of my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Maybe just to continue on, it was a great meeting for TMACOG, and I know the city's been involved in the past. Lori was part of that, and I know John's been to some of the meetings. Couple takeaways that we learned this morning was this H2 Ohio initiative. That's as much as I know, H2 Ohio initiative. But what got my attention was there are dollars out there, grant dollars, that the city of Waterville and all communities could access. So just a little more detail, we have to dig into it, but I know Mike Beasley, who was the facilitator of that, is the administrator from Oregon, Ohio, and he talked about some of that, and he talked about Perrysburg had some interest, so just something for us to look towards. And then as the conversation was talking about the 911 consolidation, and then probably something else just to get out there, it was just touched on briefly, but a criminal justice and municipal court funding topic came up. And just not to go into the weeds, basically it is to take municipal government, municipal courts, and make it county-wide. And there's a cost savings to that. There's a lot of hurdles they have to jump through, so the TMACOG and one of their committees are gonna look into that going forward. So overall, it was a good program for TMACOG. Couple other things. As the bridge is gonna be open on the 31st, John and I had some conversation this morning. I also, just by chance, talked to the District 2 Deputy Director, Patrick McCauley, and we talked about some other ideas during the ceremony. They need to be flushed out, but it's maybe having some vehicles from the city and then from the bridge contractor and some of his subs as a background, just to show a little more, I guess, support for that. So look for those details to fall into place. And I have to tell you, the Deputy 2 Director, Patrick, said, you know, Tim, we can't schedule these things, you know, months in advance. They just kind of happen. So he said, this agenda is fluid. There's going to be a lot of changes. So who knows? Maybe the governor will be there. So that, and then I'm also happy to report, ran into Eric Reimer, who runs Hall of Framers here in town, and he and some of his partners have been working on their building, dusting it up, cleaning it. They're going to have a grand opening, re-grand opening this Thursday at 6 o'clock. And exciting news is the goalie from the the Walleye is going to be there as a celebrity, and I imagine signing some certificates or whatnot. So all are welcome, 6 o'clock, downtown Waterville at the Hall of Framers. Additionally, over the months of February and March, I'll be working on a project to try and meet as many of the local business owners and managers in town, just to reacquaint ourselves with each other, and we'll be working on that to gain partnerships going forward. Also this morning, TMACOG has a board of trustees, and I was elected to one of the trustee positions. We meet supposedly four times a year. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be meeting with John and the new TARTA manager sometime in the next 10 days. That's my report.
Great.
Okay, we will move on to old business. This is Resolution 3419, a resolution approving and adopting the City of Waterville FY 2020 5-year capital planning program for all municipal funds and departments. I will ask our administrator to expand on that.
Well, the five-year capital expenditure, five-year capital program is incorporated into the 2020 operating budget for 2020. It also has 2021, 2022, 23, 24 in there as well. If anyone has any questions, we were able to provide council with the 2019 actual ending balances, and those were incorporated into the 2020 annual appropriations. So as is the case, usually our ending balances are usually more than we predict at the beginning of the budgetary process. And so all that being said, I think we have enough revenue to cover our capital program as it's proposed for 2020. And I also made a recommendation on some additional transfers from the general fund into the five-year capital fund and the park fund. Council has talked about increasing expenditures for paving, and then also some park-type planning for pickleball courts. So that's all included with your packet this evening.
Comments, questions?
I would like to reserve my questions for next meeting when the department heads are here, if that's okay.
Okay.
Myself also.
Maybe is that in agreement? The only thing I would like to say is I'm glad that we were able to find some additional funding to obviously help with the planning for parks and the pickleball concept, the roads. And I failed to mention before, in speaking with John, there's a group of local engineers that live in our community, and I work with them, my other day job. So we've agreed we're going to have a ad hoc committee, and we've got a great resource of a county engineer who lives in our community, assistant engineer, another consulting engineer, and then a retired county engineer that really, all they do is roads. They did roads for years and years. So we're gonna bring them into the room with Kenny and Tommy Risty, and just have not a critique of what we've been doing, but just what can we do differently and better. There are some things I get involved in with my company, and it's how do you maintain the roads? We do a pretty good job of identifying what's failed, repair it, but can we get more life out of the road? And I think having this extra $100,000 is going to go a long way, because I think we spend money today, it'll save certainly going forward. So if I heard the consensus that we'll hold off on any additional comments until the next meeting. Good suggestion by Mary Duncan.
Well, real quick, if the administrator could just explain on the proposed January 27, 2020 revisions that all of council received. It kind of looks like there's an $80,000 expenditures for the pickleball courts, but Mr. Gokenhour can explain that.
You know, it's just more or less kind of how it would look in our budget. You would have, in terms of revenue, you have originally unappropriated revenue that's being added to the budget from our fund balance, and so you would be transferring another $100,000 from into 325 from the general fund, and then you'd be transferring in 40,000 from the general fund into the park and green space fund as revenue. And then on the other side of the budget, in terms of expenditures, you would have to count the transfers out from the general fund of 100,000 and 40,000 as an expense. And then if council wanted to appropriate the money that was transferred out, you would have to include that as an expense in the park and green space fund, $40,000, and then in the capital improvement 5-year capital 325 fund, the extra $100,000. So that's just
Accounting.
If you look in the budget and you know you were to approve that, that's where we would change it in these areas and these line items.
It just looks like we're doing it 3 times, but we're
Yeah.
really.
But we're really not.
Right.
Barb was hoping we do it 3 times.
So these numbers aren't in, John, the.
Correct.
the-
Money tree.
They're not in.
They're not.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Moving on. We will find my agenda. All right, our next order of business is ordinance 1919, an ordinance adopting the annual appropriations for municipality of Waterville for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020, and repealing ordinance number 2019 and declaring an emergency. I think we've decided to wait till next meeting, so I read that and we're done. Okay, any other new business before council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We do have some appointments to
Oh, yes.
yeah.
committees,
I missed that.
boards and commissions. And we did have one extra addition that we included tonight, which was Laura Nielsen on the tree commission.
Okay.
And then there's also council member appointments to commissions, boards, and committees.
All right, so obviously I missed that. Check that off, one mistake, 2020. So as John mentioned, we have council member appointments to commissions, the board and committees. You've seen the revised list in front of you. Parks and Recreation, Public Safety, 2 members, Finance, Public Works, 2 members, and Tree Commission, 1 council member. I did speak to each council member prior to the first meeting of the year, and unless there's a desire, Parks and Recreation, the recommendation is to have Barbara Bruno and Anthony Bruno continue on that. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
All right. Public Safety, we made a slight change. We added John Rosick to that and included Barb Bruno. I stepped off of that. So John, you're okay with that, and Barb?
Yep.
Finance Committee, by charter, I sit on that. Certainly all council members are welcome to attend. So that's Finance. Public Works Committee, our new council member Todd Borowski was appointed or asked to be appointed to that, or I asked him. And John Rosick, is that Public Works, is that right?
I'm on currently, but if you wanted to
No, I think I said, yeah, that, keep you on that. No. Who else, who's the other council member on Public
Mary
Works?
was on.
Mary Duncan, excuse me. So, yeah, Todd Borowski and Mary Duncan on Public Works. Okay with you too?
Yep.
And then Tree Commission, I've invited Todd Borowski to accept that, which he did. So unless there's any changes, we'll make a motion.
And then, just to clarify, the finance committee needs one council member, you're automatically a member,
All right.
so it needs one council.
Oh, needs another one?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. I'm new at this, two rule. So I would,
I've been sitting on that.
you've been sitting on that? You wanna stay with that? Okay, is there a, Rod Fry is on that committee, so, I'd like to, I guess, continue that. I did ask you before, so Rod? Okay, so, roll call?
And then, adding Laura Nielsen to
Oh,
the
yes.
list of the other 4 that were listed on the,
Yeah, for the tree commission.
yes.
Okay, so,
I'm sorry, can I just go real quickly and make
Sure.
sure I got it? Mr. Parks and Rec Pardon, Mr. Bruno,
Anthony.
Public Safety, Mrs. Bruno, and
Mr. Rosick.
Mr. Rosick, okay. Public Works Todd and Mary Duncan, Tree Commission Todd Rowski, Finance Tim Pedro, and Mayor Pedro and Rob Fry.
yes.
Okay.
And Laura Nees.
And Laura,
Laura Nielsen on
tree
Tree Commission.
commission.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're all set.
We're good.
Okay, all right.
That's good.
Do we need a
Motion?
motion?
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, any other new business?
Just one maybe quick question, I should have asked sooner, but is the bridge ceremony weather permitting, or is it no matter what?
Well, I think it's no matter what.
Actually, the weather is supposed to be 38 degrees and partly sunny,
Oh, okay.
so it
I
should
didn't
be
check.
beautiful for
Dress
that.
warm, right? Yeah.
Later in the day? Okay.
We are going to conduct an executive session, so I need a voice vote for executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I need a motion first? Need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then we do not plan to have any business after the executive session. So I need a motion to, well, we already had the motion. Go into the executive session.
Can't close it out. Okay. Very good.